I am here talking to Colin Lillie, whom some of you will know from his brilliant single, The Road, released recently. I should get my words straight. Colin, lovely to see you.
Nice to see you, Sophie. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Very happy to be chatting to you because I've had the privilege of listening to your EP early because it hasn't quite been released at the time we're talking. The EP is titled Simply The, and it's wonderful. 4 songs, all so interesting and moving, and you have this brilliant singing voice, so congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, like we called it The because when we were recording it, Catherine loved the idea that each song would have The at the front. So I said we might as well call it Colin Lillie The, so people can decide what they want to put at the other end of that.
And we should say Catherine is Catherine Britt, who appeared with you on The Road, the single, and is also the producer of this EP.
Yes.
So how did you come to make that connection with Catherine?
Well, I'm very fortunate that, I've known Catherine for a little while. She's actually related to my wife. So my wife is, when people meet my wife and meet Catherine, they go, how are you related? Because my wife's Aboriginal.
Right.
So, and they go, how's that? But it's through marriage. So her grandmother and my wife's grandmother were sisters, so they're like cousins, but in Aboriginal way they're like sisters. So there's like, for me it's all confusing, but it's fine. So I sort of knew Catherine, and when I first met Catherine I was like, I don't want to talk to Catherine because I was a real fanboy. And then when the lockdown happened, I just got in touch with her and I said, look, I've got this song that's doing my head in. Can you help me? And she went, I'd love to help you. So she helped me put The Road together.
Right.
And then from that, we just decided we'd do some magic.
Yeah. So was it obvious from the start that she should also sing on The Road with you, or did that happen as you were working on production?
Yeah, no, but it was not going to be a duet when we originally set out. It was just a song that we thought everybody was in lockdown. And so, no, it wasn't until later, and somebody suggested, what about you and Catherine singing on The Road? And I went, I don't know, we'll have to ask Catherine.
True. Right answer.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it gave it this dimension of both narrators kind of wanting the same, the freedom, but to be together, like that sense of singing to each other about freedom and belonging and yearning and all these things that can get mixed up and people aren't honest with each other about. So it did add a great dimension to it, I thought.
Yes, I think for me, once the decision was made that it was going to be a duet, it made complete sense. And I don't think the song would have had such an impact if it wasn't the duet. I think the song itself would have been absolutely unbelievably great, but with Catherine on it, it just gave it this more, as you said, more explosive connection, and it gave the story a real meaning as well,
Yeah, and Catherine also had an impact, I believe, on the war, because there's a time change in that. I believe that was her idea, and you weren't so sure to begin with.
Yeah, Catherine, Catherine, when we were running through, I had about an album's worth of songs that we were running through. And we wanted to make it an EP. It was going to be an EP because being an independent artist and there being no work and everything like that, I wanted to make sure that the money I did have could be spent well and we could create something that was a really beautiful thing. And Catherine says, I think the timing should change in this one. And I went, what? And she was the minute she heard it, she just went, that's what I want to do to it, and that's what we're going to do to it. And I went, right. I'm not going to argue.
You're the expert, that's it.
Yeah, well, for me, it was always the idea that I'm a great believer that teamwork is what it's about when it's being creative. And if you're not open to the idea of something to give it a go, then you'll never know. So I said, let's give it a go. And she was right. The minute I heard it, boom, it was so right.
Well, it is that relationship with the producer that can be so collaborative and richly collaborative. And I imagine as an artist, sometimes there's the feeling that you want to resist. It's like, this is my song. What are you doing to it? But obviously you opened yourself to that experience and it has really paid off.
Yeah. I think I've worked with a few producers, and I think living in the desert, living in Alice Springs, there is the distance can be difficult when we're going through the mixing process, not actually being able to sit there through the whole process. And sometimes how I might hear things are not how you would hear them in the studio when you're mixing and that. So when you're getting it through the headphones. But yeah, I did have this process with this one where it was about having these incredible artists who know what they're doing and just letting go and right, let it go, Colin, let it breathe and let it happen, you know?
Yeah. Because some of the artists you had recording with you on this EP was Shane Nicholson.
Yes.
And you had, looking at the Steve Fernley and Jeff McCormick. And so, you know, Jeff and Shane, and probably Steve as well, well-seasoned session musicians. So that must have been fabulous.
That was like, for me, so like, I think because I'm pretty new to the music scene, per se, like, you know, like everything I've done so far with my music is all done in Australia. I didn't play music in Scotland. I didn't perform. I didn't play. I didn't learn music in Scotland. I did some stuff in at school, and then life took me on a different journey. So when Katherine said, I know exactly who I want to work on this, and I told a couple of people, they said, you've got a super band there. You've got this absolutely incredibly super. And then when Shane saw who the rhythm section was, he said, that's my rhythm section. How did you get them? You know, it was just incredible. And to actually be in the same room and watch them work, I think for me, that was a great eye opener for me.
Well, and they would choose their projects. Of course, they're not desperate for work, any of those people, including Catherine. Yeah. So I'm sure that they saw your songs and thought, we can participate in this. We will not be ashamed of it. I think the first day going and recording, Catherine and I were driving down, and I was pretty quiet. Right. And Catherine said, why are you so quiet? I said, well, we're going to go and meet Shane Nicholson and Jeff and Steve and that. And, you know, I don't know what I'm going to say to them. She says, go away, Colin, pull your head in. You know, she was really good. Like, as Catherine is with me, she can be straight. And that's what I prefer, people who are straight in the line. And it was a beautiful couple of days we had. It was beautiful. Now, you mentioned that you had an album's worth of songs. And I actually was wondering if there had been more songs you chose from, partly because the EP actually feels like a complete worldview. So it doesn't seem like it's incomplete, or that you've actually, or that you missed out anything you wanted to put in there. So when you chose those 4 songs, was it with a sense of creating that kind of whole experience on the EP?
Yeah, I think because we had been in, like, I hadn't been working and I hadn't, so income was very minimal. It was about creating something that what I'm realizing now is I've done a couple of albums in the past, and the way the music world is living now, it's all about EPs at the moment. Everybody's looking for their EPs. So Catherine was like, yeah, let's do an EP. But we really decided to really think about the songs that would go on. So Catherine and I, we really wanted to make something that felt like this is that. And it also opened up the opportunity for something else to come along as well. The story, we don't leave the story totally closed off. The story can still flow, like, you know. So it was about making something that was, because this is my first time at really diving into the country music scene. Before it was more folky roots. So, but I'm finding it like maybe this is the home that I've been looking for, like, you know.
Well, I think with a reception like the one you've had from Catherine and, you know, Shane et al. It's, as I said, they don't have to, you know, they're not people who have to take whatever job comes past. So and certainly your sound, it feels very, I don't want to say natural, because that implies that maybe you haven't done the work at it, but it does feel right. It feels comfortable. Your voice sounds natural in that genre and in those songs. So yes, maybe it is the right home for you.
Yeah, like, because I've been, like, you know, doing a holiday, like before we were doing some Cat Stevens tribute shows around the country, and I've done a whole load of folk stuff and that. But I think it's all about the storytelling, and I think the song tells the story. And I've always been one of those people that allows the song to lead me and where it wants to go. But I'm just feeling that now. I'm feeling this journey is all about following, like, the guidance now, like not resistant, being less resistant after lockdown, like, you know, and being kept out of work.
Which is an interesting position to take, because given the lack of control we've all felt over the past couple of years, one way to go would have been to try to control things more and actually not open yourself up to whatever came.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you now, as you said, you're a Scot. We can tell by your accent you're a Scot. Yeah. I'm a big fan of the Scots accent, so I'm very happy to listen to it. But you're now in Alice Springs. So what took you to Alice Springs?
Oh, there's two stories. There's the one where I was sitting with two Aussie blokes and woke up in Alice Springs after a couple of beers. You know?
The good one.
But the real one is that I had a girlfriend, an Irish girlfriend, who always wanted to travel Australia. And we basically came to Australia. We experienced Australia for a year. I sang for the very first time with a guitar in Alice Springs at that time. That would be 2004. Right. Then something happened. I just discovered myself traveling from the Gold Coast to the centre. You know, there was this beautiful space. This space was unbelievable, and it opened, rather than making me, I was always, I guess, coming from Scotland, there's all this beauty around you. There's mountains, there's always something in the way of the sky. Right. But when you see that open space in the desert for the first time, wow, it just blew my mind. And I wanted to go back. So we went back to Ireland, where we were living at the time, and I came back, and I didn't go back after that. I managed to find a way of staying, and you know, that's it. And a new life was beginning for me. Like,
yeah. So it obviously unlocked something in you, because as you said, you sang for the first time when you were here. So you either unlocked something, or perhaps they're related concepts. You felt freer to be you.
Yes. Yeah. Like, there was definitely the sense of possibility.
Right.
I think that's what it, like, you know, like I ended up making some big life changes, you know, and then possibilities opened up, you know, and that was a great thing.
So when did you start writing songs after that point?
So the beautiful thing that Irish girl taught me was that she threw a journal at me once, and she said, just write, because I had all this stuff going through my head and past trauma and stuff. And she said, write. So I wrote in journals. And then one day when I was here, someday, like, I was doing some gigs around Alice Springs with a good friend, and he left town. And I said, what am I going to do? And somebody turned around and said, well, why don't you take what you've written and put it along with the guitar? And I went, what? And so I started writing. And from that, you know, magic happened. You know, like, I've always had problems expressing who I am. I've always had problems sharing who I am in the right way. And I feel that was my time to learn how to share who I am. So, yeah.
And it's often the case, I think, that it's about the timing. There can be all these narratives around, you know, achieve something before a certain age or before you reach a certain stage in life, but the time's different for everyone. And it's partly what I love about country music in Australia is you can be any age and release your first EP.
Yeah. I think that it's not just the country scene. I think that's Australia in a whole. Right. Australia has offered me, especially in the Northern Territory as well, like, you know, like, it is the things that have come along in my life wouldn't have come along if I'd been in Scotland. You know, they've come along because I'm here in Australia, and because Australia has offered me so much, so much, you know. So yeah, I'm so grateful for the fact that I'm living here, you know.
I haven't been to Alice Springs. I have been to the top end a bit. I've spent some time in Katherine. Nice. And there's that feeling you're describing about when you first saw Alice Springs, and the sense you have of that place and of the territory. There is something in the air, I swear, when you're in that part of Australia. There's some difference, almost like you're in a parallel dimension. It is quite unusual and quite powerful. So I completely understand why you didn't want to leave.
Yeah. It's like something was hidden under one of those ancient rocks, and when I turned it over, it was, hey, Colin, how are you?
So, because for your songwriting and you're playing guitar, but it's another thing again to develop your voice as a singer. And so you said you sang for the first time when you were here. Did you take a bit of time to find that singing voice that could express your songs?
I guess for me, like, I did some singing at school, and then I moved on. So I think the idea, I got thrown on stage with a friend of mine who said, oh, geez, you can sing, but you can't play guitar for peanuts. So he threw me up on stage, and he just said, just sing and pretend you're playing the guitar. And for me, it was, I think singing was such a natural, it was always a freedom for me, especially when I was a kid. I would go to church, I would sing, I could freely be that kid, like, would you call it, sing freely, and it was a sense of freedom. And I guess that as we talk about Australia and the territory opening me up, the sense of freedom came out. So my voice is, but I do believe my voice is constantly developing, you know, and I do enjoy that. I do enjoy the fact that there's different things I can do with my voice. So I haven't had much in the, I've had a few lessons and a few things, but you know, everything I've done is that just me opening up, you know.
So when you write a song, do you write, because you were writing in the journal, but these days, if you're writing a song, do you start with lyrics, or do you try to discover how it sounds in your voice and on the guitar and then document it as a voice memo as opposed to writing it down?
All of those.
Right.
All of those. I find that the biggest problem I've been having is because I haven't been on the road. I find that I work better when I'm on the road, and I come back with a lot more ideas after I've been on the road. And then when I've come off the road, that's when I start developing it, you know, like, so voice memos and lyrics and it's all, so yeah, I've got a brain that seems to just run around like a motor, and it's never stops. So it's about finding the time to just decompartmentalize everything and put it into different, and then I can start working on how it's going to progress. So sometimes it's a melody, sometimes it's the lyrics, and sometimes it's a memo, you know.
So talking of the road, of course you have the single The Road, but being on the road, things are now opening up in the two most popular states, of course, New South Wales and Victoria. And I can see how, yes, Alice Springs is logistically quite tricky, but you are literally in the centre. So hopefully that means you can radiate outwards sometime soon. I mean, do you have some plans?
Oh yeah, so I'm hoping that I can, so this month I was meant to be at the International Folk Alliance conference in Kansas, but it got postponed. So I'm hopefully going to be there in May. I've got some dates coming up with Katherine through the territory, South Australia, and then I'm heading over to Tamworth, fingers crossed that be it. And then I'm trying to organise some just solo dates along the way until August. And fingers crossed, if everything goes well, I'll have my visa and I'll be across at Americana and hopefully do some dates with Katherine as well in the States. So like that's everything that we've got on paper. So hopefully, fingers crossed, that'll all be working. So,
and if anyone is visiting Alice Springs, where's a good place to go to hear music, particularly your music?
Well, at the moment, I would say there's like, at the moment, if they're in Alice Springs, you could go to Monty's on the 25th of this month, because Catherine Britt and I are doing a gig. But there's also another venue called Epilogue, and there's a beautiful little theatre called the Totem Theatre, which is about 100, sits about 100, which I love doing shows there. I'm trying to line up some shows there because it's just really a good intimate listening room, and I think that's something, and I like to give those younger artists who are coming through an opportunity to have a good listening room so people can hear what they're trying to say.
So it sounds like there are quite a few young artists in Alice Springs. There's a bit of a thriving scene, hopefully.
We definitely are part of, like, we're one of the most remote music communities in Australia, and we're one of the most isolated ones. And yeah, I think we do punch well above our weight when it comes to music. Darwin does get a lot of great opportunities. So it's always been my thing, and one of my main things is to try to bring the people that I get to work with, bring them to Alice Springs, and get the younger artists to hang out with them and try to learn as much as they possibly can. So yeah, we do really okay. We've got a lot of, and it's such a diverse community. It's wonderful, wonderful.
And it is the case that Darwin can get a lot in the territory, and I think if people are outside the territory, they think perhaps that Darwin and Alice Springs are closer than they are, and they're basically half a country away from each other. Yeah,
16 hours drive. If you want to get another gig, you've got to drive 16 hours up to Darwin. So, you know, before the lockdown, I was doing a lot of work on the East Coast, traveling up and down that. So like for me, it's about building my profile as much as I can. So the next person who's following up, they can come in and I can put them along the same pathway I've been going. So it's all part and parcel of the growing again and reconnecting and bringing everybody together, you know.
Well, Colin, I have no doubt your profile will grow after this EP is released. I'm really
Thanks,
pleased to hear
Sophie.
you have some shows coming up. It's been a real pleasure to speak with you, and I hope to hear more songs sometime in the future.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you for your beautiful words about the road as well. I really do appreciate that. It's always great when people connect with what you're doing, and I'm looking forward to connect with everybody again. That's the one thing I'm itching to do. Thank you.
We will see you on the road.
Yeah.
Bye.